The chamber was larger than any building on Earth. It stretched across 5 kilometers of floating crystal platforms, suspended in the darkness between 2 distant suns. 700 species sat in rising tiers that disappeared into shadows above, and every single eye was focused on one small platform at the center of the void. Ambassador Marcus Webb stood alone on that platform. He was 53 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much in his lifetime. Behind him, projected across the ceiling like a judgment, hung the image of Earth. His homeworld looked so small from here, so fragile. He was the first human to ever stand in the Grand Assembly of the Galactic Council. He would probably be the last. The tribunal will now hear the charges, boomed a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The speaker was High Chancellor Vorn, a being made of pure crystalline light that pulsed with each word. He had governed the council for 3 million years. He had seen species rise and fall like waves on a cosmic shore. Today, he would decide if humanity would fall. Species designation, human, Vorn announced. Origin, Earth. Sol system, outer rim territories. Population, 8,400,000,000. Marcus did not move. He had been trained for this moment. He had been preparing for years. But nothing could truly prepare a man to face the judgment of gods. You stand accused of psychological instability, Vorn continued. You stand accused of possessing a mind incompatible with civilized existence. The evidence has been collected. The verdict has been calculated. From the shadows to Marcus's left, a creature emerged. It had no fixed form. It was mathematics given consciousness, a being called the Arbiter. Its purpose was simple, to calculate truth. I have analyzed 147 years of human behavior, the Arbiter said. Its voice was like numbers speaking. I have studied your history, your wars, your art, your science, your dreams. It paused. Your species is broken. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Species that had been enemies for millennia leaned toward each other, united by a shared unease. Explain, High Chancellor Vorn commanded. The Arbiter's form shifted, and suddenly the chamber was filled with images. Human images. The trenches of the First World War, the mushroom clouds over Japan, the killing fields of Cambodia, the towers falling in New York. In 300 years, humans killed more of their own kind than most species lose to natural extinction events, the Arbiter said. They invented weapons capable of destroying their entire planet, and then they pointed those weapons at themselves. They poisoned their own air, their own water, their own food. They watched their world burn and argued about whether the fire was real. The images shifted again. A man standing in front of a tank. A woman holding a sign against an army. Children walking through rubble with flowers in their hands. And yet, the Arbiter continued, they did not stop. They did not surrender. They continued building, fighting, dreaming, even as they destroyed themselves. This is not rational behavior. This is not survival instinct. This is madness. Marcus Webb listened to all of this without expression. His heart was pounding, but his face was stone. The recommendation, the Arbiter concluded, is immediate quarantine. Planetary isolation. No human vessel may leave the Sol system until such time as the species demonstrates psychological stability. Which means never, someone called from the upper tiers. Laughter followed. Cruel laughter. High Chancellor Vorn raised a hand for silence. Ambassador Webb, you may speak in defense of your species. This was the moment. This was everything. Marcus looked up at the 700 species assembled above him. Beings of light and shadow. Creatures of crystal and flesh. Intelligences that had existed before Earth's sun was born. You are right, he said. The laughter stopped. We are insane, Marcus continued. By your standards, By any rational measure, humanity is completely and utterly mad. We know this. We have always known this. He took a step forward on his platform. But you made a mistake in your analysis, Arbiter. You studied what we do. You did not ask why we do it. The Arbiter's form flickered. Explain. You showed the Council our wars, our weapons, our capacity for destruction. But you did not show them the context. Marcus raised his hand, and the chamber's display systems shifted. New images appeared. Earth is not like your worlds. Earth is violent. It freezes and burns. It shakes and floods. Every few million years, something falls from the sky and kills almost everything alive. The images showed extinction events, asteroids, ice ages, supervolcanoes. Our ancestors did not evolve in paradise. They evolved in hell. Every generation faced extinction. Every generation had to fight, not just to thrive, but to exist at all. The ones who survived were the ones who refused to give up, no matter how hopeless things seemed. He turned slowly, addressing all 700 species. You call this madness. We call it hope, silence. Hope is not the belief that things will get better, Marcus said. Hope is the determination to keep trying, even when you know they might not. It is the ability to look at impossible odds and say, I will fight anyway. I will build anyway. I will love anyway. He pointed at the images of destruction still hanging in the air. Yes, we built weapons that could destroy our world. But we did not use them. Yes, we damaged our environment. But we are trying to fix it. Yes, we fight and kill and hurt each other. But we also heal and help and sacrifice ourselves for strangers. His voice rose. You have watched us for 147 years. In that time, we went from horses to spacecraft. We cured diseases that killed millions. We fed billions who would have starved. We reached out into the darkness of space and said, we want to meet you. We want to be your friends. He spread his arms. Is that the behavior of a broken species? Or is it the behavior of a species that refuses to be broken? High Chancellor Vorn stared at the human for a long moment. In 3 million years, no accused species had ever spoken like this. No one had ever admitted guilt and transformed it into a defense. Your words are interesting, Vorn said finally. But words do not change mathematics. The Arbiter's analysis is clear. Then let me offer you different mathematics, Marcus said. Something the Arbiter did not calculate. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. It looked like a simple communication unit, but when he activated it, every alarm in the council chamber began to scream. What have you done? Vorn demanded. Marcus smiled. It was a small smile, tired and sad, and somehow terrifying. We knew about your surveillance, he said. We have known for decades. And we knew that eventually you would come to judge us. So we prepared. The chamber's displays flickered and changed. They now showed a tactical map of the galaxy, with hundreds of small red dots scattered across it. Those are human vessels, Marcus said. Stealth ships. We have been building them in secret for 30 years. Each one carries a quantum disruption device capable of collapsing a star. Chaos erupted in the chamber. Species screamed. Some fled. Others roared with fury. You are insane, Vorn whispered. Yes, Marcus agreed. We are. And now you must ask yourself a question, High Chancellor. He leaned forward. Do you really want to corner something that is insane? The question hung in the air like a blade. You can quarantine us. You can try to destroy us. But we have already shown you what we are willing to do when we are desperate. The question is not whether humanity will survive. The question is how much of the galaxy will survive with us. He straightened his jacket. I suggest we discuss alternatives. Peacefully. For the first time in 3 million years, High Chancellor Vorn did not know what to say. The emergency session had been called within minutes of Marcus Webb's revelation. In a private chamber carved from a single massive crystal, the 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy gathered to discuss the impossible situation. Before them, High Chancellor Vorn stood at the head of the table, his crystalline form pulsing with agitation. Around him sat representatives of species that had ruled the stars for billions of years. The collective mind of Theron, a hive consciousness that controlled 40,000 worlds. Grand Marshal Keth of the Iron Dominion, a military empire that had never lost a war. The Oracle of Whispers, an ancient being that could see fragments of possible futures. And in the corner, standing because she had not been offered a seat, was Commander Diana Reyes. She was humanity's military attaché sent to observe the trial. Now she was the only human in a room full of gods. "This is unacceptable," Grand Marshal Keth growled. He was massive, covered in armored scales, his eyes burning with barely contained rage. "We should destroy their fleet now, before they can act, and trigger the very response we fear." The collective mind spoke through a single representative, a pale figure with too many eyes. The human ambassador was clear. "If we attack, they will retaliate. They have nothing to lose. Then we isolate them, blockade their system, starve them into submission. That would take centuries. Their population is large. Their world is self-sufficient." The Oracle of Whispers drifted forward, its form like smoke given thought. "I have seen the possibilities. In 73% of scenarios where we attempt force, the humans respond with catastrophic violence. In 22%, they find a way to escape our blockade. In only 5% do they surrender." Diana Reyes listened to all of this in silence. Her expression ailed nothing, but inside, her mind was racing. The Council had surveillance in this room. Everything said here would be recorded, analyzed, and eventually transmitted to Earth. But that would take hours, maybe days. She was alone. "What of the remaining scenarios?" Vorn asked. "In those, we negotiate. We offer them something they want. We bring them into the Council as partners rather than prisoners." The Oracle paused. "In those scenarios, the outcome is uncertain. Humanity is too chaotic to predict. But the galaxy survives. Partners?" Keth spat the word like poison. "They are insects. They are children. They have existed for a fraction of a heartbeat in cosmic terms. And you suggest we treat them as equals?" "I suggest we treat them as dangerous," the Oracle replied. "Which they are." Vorn turned his attention to Diana. "Human, you have been quiet. Do you have anything to add to this discussion?" Diana met his gaze without flinching. "I have a question. Ask." "Have you considered that we might be telling the truth?" Silence. "Not about the threats," Diana continued. "About who we are. About what drives us. Ambassador Webb told you that we are insane because our world taught us to be. He told you that our madness is actually hope. Did any of you actually listen?" The collective mind leaned forward. "We heard. We do not understand. Then let me explain it differently." Diana stepped away from the wall, moving toward the table. No one stopped her. "You have studied our history. You have seen our wars. But have you studied our stories?" "Stories?" Keth laughed. "Fiction? Fantasy? What relevance do lies have?" "Everything." Diana pulled a small device from her pocket and activated it. Images appeared above the table. "These are our heroes. Not our generals. Not our conquerors. Our heroes." The first image showed a man standing in front of tanks. He was a student, alone, unarmed. He stood against an army because he believed it was wrong. He probably died. But his image traveled around the world and inspired millions. The next image showed a woman in simple clothes. She refused to give up her seat on a bus. One small act of defiance. It helped change an entire nation. Another image. A man in a prison cell. He spent 27 years in prison for fighting against injustice. When he was finally freed, he did not seek revenge. He sought reconciliation. Diana looked at each of the ancient beings in turn. These are the stories we tell our children. Not stories of conquest. Not stories of power. Stories of ordinary people who stood against impossible odds because they believed in something greater than themselves. The Oracle of Whispers drifted closer. You believe this makes you different? I believe this makes us dangerous in a way you do not expect. Diana's voice was steady. You are afraid we will destroy you. But that is not what we want. We want to belong. We want to be part of something larger than ourselves. We reached out to the stars, hoping to find friends. She gestured at the tactical display, still showing the human stealth fleet. Those ships exist because we were afraid. Because our history taught us that when you meet someone more powerful than you must be prepared to fight. But we did not come here to fight. We came here to ask a question. What question? Vorn asked. Diana took a deep breath. Will you let us belong? The chamber fell silent. The question hung in the air, simple and profound and utterly unexpected. You threatened to destroy our stars, Keth said slowly, and then you asked to be our friends? Yes, because that is what humans do. We fight and love with the same intensity. We rage and forgive in the same breath. We hold a weapon in one hand and extend the other in friendship. Diana smiled, and there was something sad in it. We are insane, but we are also sincere. The Oracle of Whispers spoke again, its voice echoing strangely. I have seen a new possibility, one that did not exist before this moment. What possibility? Vorm demanded. A future where humanity joins the Council, where their chaos becomes a force for creation rather than destruction, where their hope spreads to species that have forgotten what it means to dream. The Oracle paused. It is a small possibility, fragile, but it exists. Grand Marshal Keth rose from his seat. This is foolishness. We cannot trust a species that threatens genocide while asking for friendship. Can you not? Diana asked. Is that not exactly what every species in this room has done at some point in its history? You are all survivors. You all fought and killed and conquered to reach this point. The only difference is that you have forgotten what it felt like to be desperate. She turned to face Vorm directly. We have not forgotten. We remember every moment of our struggle, every death, every defeat, every small victory against impossible odds. That memory is what makes us dangerous, but it is also what makes us valuable. Vorn studied her for a long moment. His crystalline form shifted through colors that had no names in human language. You ask us to take a risk, he said finally. A risk unlike any we have taken in 9 billion years. Yes. Why should we? Diana smiled again, and this time there was genuine warmth in it. Because we are worth it. And somewhere, deep in whatever passes for your heart, you know it. The silence that followed was the loudest thing Diana had ever heard. Then, from the darkness at the edge of the chamber, a new voice spoke. A voice that made every being in the room freeze with terror. She is correct. It was a voice older than stars. A voice that had not been heard in the council. Chambers for 100 million years. The Watcher had. Awakened. And everything was about to. Change. The Watcher emerged from shadows that should not have existed in that crystalline chamber. It was ancient beyond measure, a being that had existed before the first galaxies formed. Its form was impossible to describe because it existed in dimensions that mortal minds could not perceive. What the council saw was merely a projection, a shadow of something vast and terrible, and utterly incomprehensible. Every being in the room fell silent. Even Grand Marshal Keth, who had never shown fear in 300,000 years of warfare, stepped back from the table. "The Watcher speaks," High Chancellor Vorn whispered. His crystalline form had gone pale. In 9 billion years of council history, the Watcher has spoken only twice. Once when the entropy plague threatened to consume the galaxy, the Oracle of Whispers added, its voice trembling. Once when the machine wars nearly ended all organic life. Diana Reyes stood frozen, her military training the only thing keeping her from running. She had read about the Watcher in classified briefings. Earth's intelligence services knew it existed. But seeing it, feeling its presence, was something entirely different. It was like standing at the edge of an infinite abyss and realizing the abyss was looking back. "I have observed," the Watcher said. Its voice did not come from anywhere specific. It simply existed, vibrating through reality itself. "I have watched your species for millennia. All of you. The collective mind of Theron. The Iron Dominion. The crystalline speakers. The Oracle. All of you." It paused. "I have never seen anything like humans." The statement hung in the air like a verdict. "Explain." Vorn managed to say that the Watcher's form shifted. And suddenly the chamber was filled with visions. Not images, but actual moments from time itself, frozen and displayed for all to see. "This is a human," the Watcher said. The vision showed a soldier in a muddy trench. Around him, his friends lay dead or dying. Artillery shells exploded in the distance. He was young, maybe 20 years old, covered in blood and filth. He was writing a letter. "He knows he will die tomorrow," the Watcher continued. "He has known for days. But he is writing to his mother. He is telling her not to worry. He is telling her that he loves her. He is telling her that he hopes the flowers in her garden are blooming." The vision shifted to show the same young man's face. Tears were streaming down his cheeks, but he was smiling. He is terrified. He is heartbroken. He misses his home more than he has ever missed anything. But he is choosing to spend his final hours giving comfort to someone else. The collective mind spoke, confusion evident in its many voices. "This is inefficient. His energy would be better spent preparing for battle or attempting escape." "Yes," the Watcher agreed. "By any rational calculation, his behavior is foolish." And yet, another vision appeared. The soldier's mother, years later, old and gray, reading that same letter, holding it against her heart, drawing strength from words written by a dead boy decades ago. That letter helped her survive her grief. She went on to raise 3 more children, all of whom became healers. Those children saved thousands of lives. Those lives went on to save millions more. The Watcher's form pulsed with something that might have been emotion. One act of irrational kindness, rippling through time, creating more life than most species produce in their entire existence. Diana found her voice. "We call that love, yes." The Watcher turned its attention to her. "You have many names for it. Love, hope, faith, compassion. These are not logical concepts. They cannot be calculated or predicted, but they are the most powerful forces in your species." Grand Marshal Keth stepped forward, his scales rattling with agitation. "You speak as if these humans are special. They are not. They are primitive, violent, self-destructive. They are everything the Arbiter said they are." "Correct," the Watcher said. "They are all of those things. And they are also the only species in 9 billion years that has interested me enough to speak." Silence. "I have watched civilizations rise and fall like breath," the Watcher continued. "I have seen species achieve perfection, eliminate all conflict, remove all suffering. And then I have watched them fade into nothing because they had lost the one thing that makes existence meaningful. What thing? Vorn asked. The ability to struggle, the capacity to fail, the courage to love something knowing it will end. The visions shifted again. Now they showed human history in rapid succession. Wars and weddings, funerals and births, cities burning and cities being rebuilt, scientists failing 1,000 times before succeeding once, artists creating beauty that would outlast stars. Your species, the Watcher said to the council members, have evolved beyond struggle. You have achieved stability. You have eliminated most suffering from your civilizations. This is admirable. This is wise. But it has cost you something precious. Its attention returned to Diana. Humans have not lost this thing. They suffer constantly. They fail constantly. They love and lose and grieve and begin again. Every human carries pain and hope in equal measure, and they choose to continue despite knowing that more pain awaits. Diana felt tears forming in her eyes. She did not know why. The Watcher was describing the thing she had always known, but never been able to articulate. This is why they threaten you with destruction while asking to be your friends, the Watcher concluded. This is why they can hold rage and compassion in the same heart. They are not broken. They are complete in a way most species have forgotten how to be. What are you saying? Vorn demanded. That we should accept them? That we should ignore the threat they represent? I am saying that the threat is not what you think it is. The Watcher's form expanded, filling the chamber with shadow and light. Humanity will change this galaxy. This is inevitable. Their chaos will spread. Their hope will infect species that have forgotten how to hope. Their madness will force civilizations to question assumptions they have held for billions of years. It paused. Some of you will resist this change. Some of you will try to destroy them. And you might succeed. But in doing so, you will lose something irreplaceable. You will lose the last reminder of what it means to truly live. The Watcher began to fade back into the shadows. The choice is yours. It has always been yours. But know this, I have watched the universe for longer than time has had meaning. And in all that vast expanse, these brief, mad, beautiful creatures are the most interesting thing I have ever seen. Its final words echoed through dimensions beyond comprehension. Do not waste them. And then it was gone. The chamber remained silent for a long time. Finally, Diana spoke. Her voice was soft, almost wondering. We never knew anyone was watching. No one did, the Oracle whispered. The Watcher observes, but never interferes. For it to speak now, after 100 million years of silence, ... It means something is coming, Vorn said. His crystalline form had shifted to a deep, troubled blue. Something that requires humanity to exist. Grand Marshal Keth looked at Diana with new eyes. What are you people? Diana met his gaze steadily. We are human. We are afraid and brave, and cruel and kind, and everything in between. We are exactly what you said we are. And we are exactly what the Watcher said we are. Both things are true at once. She smiled, and there was something ancient in that smile, something that had been passed down through 1,000,000 generations of survivors. That is what makes us insane. And that is what makes us dangerous. And that is what makes us worth keeping alive. Somewhere in the distance, alarms began to sound. Something was happening. Something that would test everything. The Watcher had said ... and humanity was about to prove whether its madness was a weakness or a strength. Alarms were not the normal warning signals that occasionally sounded in the council chambers. These were ancient tones, frequencies that had not been heard in living memory. They were the alarms reserved for extinction-level events. High Chancellor Vorn moved immediately to the central display console. His crystalline fingers danced across controls that responded to thought rather than touch. The images that appeared made every being in the room go still. Something was emerging from the void between galaxies. Impossible, the Oracle of Whispers breathed. Its smoky form had condensed into something almost solid with fear. The Devourers were destroyed. We ended them 4 billion years ago. Apparently, Grand Marshal Keth said grimly, we were wrong. Diana Reyes stared at the display without understanding. She saw a darkness moving between the stars, something so vast it blocked the light from entire sectors. Thousands of tendrils stretched across light years of space, each one larger than solar systems, each one moving with terrible purpose. What is that? She asked. Vorn's voice was hollow. They are called the Devourers. They are not a species. They are not even truly alive. They are a force of entropy given form, existing only to consume. 4 billion years ago, they nearly ended all life in this galaxy. It took every species working together to stop them. We thought we killed them, Keth added. We were wrong. They were only sleeping. The display showed the Devourers' trajectory. They were heading directly toward the galactic core, toward the Council headquarters, toward the greatest concentration of life in the known universe. How long until they arrive? Diana asked. 3 hours, Vorn replied. Perhaps less. The collective mind of Theron spoke through its representative. Our combined fleets cannot stop them. The weapons we used 4 billion years ago no longer exist. The species who created them are long extinct. Then we evacuate, Diana said. We run. We survive. There is nowhere to run. The Oracle's voice was distant, seeing futures that Diana could not imagine. The Devourers do not stop. They will consume this galaxy, then move to the next. They will continue until there is nothing left. Running only delays the inevitable. Diana felt cold. Real, physical cold, despite the regulated temperature of the chamber. This was how it ended. Not with war, not with judgment, but with something so vast and indifferent that all their struggles meant nothing. And then, Ambassador Marcus Webb walked into the chamber. He looked tired. He had been in holding since his speech in the Grand Assembly, surrounded by guards who did not know whether to treat him as a prisoner or a guest. But when he saw the display, when he understood what was happening, something changed in his eyes. How much time do we have? He asked. 3 hours, Diana told him. Maybe less. And no weapon can stop them? None that we possess, Vorn confirmed. Marcus stood in silence for a moment. Diana could see him thinking, processing, calculating. She had known him for 15 years. She had never seen him look quite like this. The Arbiter, Marcus said suddenly. Is it still functional? Yes, but what relevance? I need to talk to it. Now. Vorn hesitated, then gestured. A portion of the wall opened, revealing an adjacent chamber. The Arbiter waited within, its mathematical form pulsing steadily. Marcus walked toward it without waiting for permission. Arbiter, you analyzed human psychology. You calculated that we are insane. Tell me, in your analysis, did you find any examples of humans defeating impossible odds? The Arbiter processed for a fraction of a second. Numerous examples exist. The Battle of Thermopylae, the Siege of Malta, the Winter War. In each case, human forces achieved outcomes that should have been mathematically impossible. How? Unknown. Human variables do not conform to standard probability calculations. You appear to create outcomes through force of will alone. Marcus turned to face the Council. The Devourers are a mathematical certainty. They are entropy. They are inevitability. They have consumed galaxies because no one has ever been able to do what should not be done. He smiled, and it was the same terrible smile he had worn when he revealed humanity's hidden fleet. We specialize in doing what should not be done. What are you proposing? Vorn demanded. Our stealth ships. The quantum disruption devices. We designed them to collapse stars. Marcus's voice was steady. What happens if we collapse a star inside the Devourers? The Arbiter calculated instantly. The energy release would be catastrophic. It would destroy a significant portion of the Devourer mass. But not all of it, Keth pointed out. You said there are thousands of tendrils. You have only hundreds of ships. Then we hit the center, the core of the thing. If these creatures function like any other system, destroying the center should affect the whole. The probability of success is approximately 2%, the Arbiter stated. The probability of human survival is significantly lower. Marcus shrugged. Better odds than we usually get. Diana stepped forward. Marcus, you are talking about a suicide mission. You are talking about sending our entire fleet into something that has destroyed galaxies. Yes. And you think people will volunteer for that? Marcus looked at her with something like pity. Diana, I think we will have to turn people away. Every human on those ships knew they might never come home. That is why they volunteered. Not because they wanted to die, but because they wanted their deaths to mean something. He turned back to Vorn. You asked us to prove that we deserve to exist. You demanded evidence that our insanity has value. Here is your evidence. We will fly into the heart of something that has destroyed civilizations beyond counting. And we will try to kill it, knowing that we will probably fail. Knowing that we will probably die, because that is what humans do. His voice rose. We do not surrender to the inevitable. We fight it. We rage against it. We spit in its eye and dare it to finish us. Not because we believe we will win, but because we refuse to believe that we have already lost. The chamber fell silent. Then, slowly, the collective mind of Theron spoke. We will commit our remaining fleet to support this mission. Grand Marshal Keth nodded, his scales settling into something like determination. The Iron Dominion will fight beside you. One by one, species that had been prepared to execute humanity moments ago pledged their support. One by one, the galaxy united against an enemy it had thought eternal. Vorn looked at Marcus with new understanding. You truly believe you can win? No, Marcus admitted. But I believe we can try. And sometimes that is enough. He checked his watch. 2 hours, 47 minutes. I suggest we stop talking and start preparing. As the chamber erupted into activity, Diana caught Marcus's arm. You know this is probably the end. Yes? And you are okay with that? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled, and this time it was not terrible. It was simply human. I am terrified. I do not want to die. I want to see my daughter grow up. I want to grow old with my wife. I want to sit on my porch and watch the sunset over mountains I have never visited. He took a breath. But if I have to die, I want it to mean something. I want my daughter to know that her father stood against the darkness when it mattered. I want her to remember that humans do not go quietly. He squeezed Diana's shoulder. That is what they do not understand about us. We are not brave despite our fear. We are brave because of it. Fear tells us that something matters. Fear tells us what is worth fighting for. He walked away to begin preparations, and Diana stood alone, surrounded by ancient beings preparing for a battle they expected to lose, and for the first time in her life, she understood exactly what it meant to be human. The combined fleet of the galaxy numbered over 10,000 vessels. Ships from species that had been at war for millennia flew in formation with former enemies. Ancient warships that had not seen combat in 1,000,000 years powered up their weapons beside human stealth craft that were barely decades old. At the center of this formation, aboard the flagship Defiance, Commander Diana Reyes stood beside Ambassador Marcus Webb. They watched through the observation deck as the Devourers grew larger against the backdrop of stars, not up close. The entity was even more terrifying than the displays had suggested. It was not simply darkness. It was the absence of everything. Where the Devourers touched, reality itself seemed to unravel. Stars flickered and died. Planets crumbled to dust. Even light could not escape its embrace. "Final status report," Marcus said into his communicator. "All human vessels are in position," came the reply. 300 ships, each one carrying a crew who knew they would probably never return. Quantum disruption devices armed and ready. Allied fleet standing by, reported a dozen voices from a dozen species, ready to provide cover and distraction. Marcus looked at Diana. "Any last words of wisdom?" She shook her head. "I think you have said everything that needed saying. Probably too much." He attempted a smile. "I always did talk too much." An alarm sounded. The Devourers had changed course. They had detected the fleet. Thousands of tendrils began reaching toward them, each one capable of swallowing entire worlds. "This is it," Marcus said. He activated the fleet-wide communication channel. "All vessels, this is Ambassador Webb. You know what we are facing. You know what the odds are. I am not going to lie to you or give you false hope." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "What I will tell you is this. Today, we make a choice. We can die running, or we can die fighting. We can fade away into nothing, or we can become something that will be remembered as long as there are beings to remember." His voice strengthened. "The galaxy called us insane. They were right. We are insane enough to believe that our lives matter, that our choices matter, that standing up against the darkness matters even if we lose. And today, that insanity is going to save them." He looked out at the approaching void. Humanity has always punched above its weight. We have always achieved the impossible because we never learned to accept what was possible. Today is no different. Today, we fly into the heart of something that has destroyed galaxies, and we are going to hurt it. He smiled. "Maybe we will win. Maybe we will not. But either way, they will remember us. They will tell stories about the mad little species from a small blue planet who looked at the end of everything and said, 'Not today.'" He closed his eyes for a moment. All vessels. "Engage." The fleet surged forward. What followed was chaos. Diana could barely track what was happening through the observation deck's displays. Human ships dove toward the center of the Devourer mass, weaving through tendrils that could crush planets. Allied vessels drew fire and attention, sacrificing themselves to create openings. Explosions flared across the void. Ships died by the hundreds. But slowly, impossibly, the human fleet penetrated deeper. "We are approaching the core," reported Captain Thomas Grant from the lead vessel. "Heavy resistance, but we are pushing through. Casualties?" Marcus asked, his voice tight. 60% of human vessels destroyed. Allied losses at approximately 40%. Diana felt each number like a physical blow. Thousands of lives gone in minutes. Families that would never see their loved ones again. Dreams that would never be fulfilled. But the surviving vessels kept moving forward. "Core in visual range," Grant reported. "It is. God, it is bigger than I imagined. The thing is alive. I can see it pulsing. I can feel it trying to get into my head." "Hold steady, Captain." "Holding." 10 vessels remaining in strike range. Preparing for final approach. Marcus grabbed Diana's arm. "Look, on the display, something was happening." The 10 remaining human ships had formed a tight formation, accelerating toward the pulsing center of the Devourer. Around them, the entity's tendrils were converging, trying to crush them before they could reach their target. "They are not going to make it," Diana whispered. "Watch." What happened next defied everything Diana thought she knew about physics, about probability, about the universe itself. The lead vessel, piloted by Captain Grant, accelerated beyond its rated maximum speed. It should have torn itself apart. Instead, it shot through the narrowing gap between converging tendrils like a needle through fabric. The other vessels followed, moving in ways that machines should not have been able to move, making decisions faster than computers should have been able to calculate. They were not flying their ships. They were willing them forward. "Detonation in 10 seconds, Grant reported. His voice was calm. "It has been an honor serving with all of you. The honor was ours. Captain, tell my daughter I love her. We will." 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. The screen went white. When Diana's vision cleared, she saw something she would never forget as long as she lived. At the heart of the Devourers, where 10 human vessels had detonated their quantum disruption devices simultaneously, reality was collapsing. Stars were being born and dying in the same instant. Space itself was folding, tearing, rewriting itself, and the Devourers were screaming, not with sound, but with something deeper. They were screaming with the agony of something ancient and eternal, finally meeting something it could not consume. The entity began to collapse inward. Tendrils that had stretched across light years withered and disintegrated. The darkness that had swallowed galaxies was being devoured by light. "They did it," Diana breathed. "My God, they actually did it." When the light finally faded, the Devourers were gone. Not destroyed entirely, perhaps, but wounded so deeply that they retreated back into the void between galaxies, back into the darkness from which they had emerged. The cost was immense. 273 human vessels lost. 3,000 human lives gone. Thousands more from allied species who had stood beside them. But the galaxy survived. 1 year later, the Grand Assembly gathered again. This time, there was no accused platform. This time, humanity stood among the 700 species as equals. High Chancellor Vorn spoke the words that would change history. By unanimous vote of the Galactic Council, the species designated human is hereby granted full membership. Earth and its colonies are recognized as sovereign territory. Humanity will have a permanent seat on this council, with all rights and responsibilities therein. He paused. Additionally, the council recognizes humanity's sacrifice in the defense of all life. A monument will be constructed at the site of the battle, bearing the names of every being who died that day. And in the records of the galaxy, this event will be known as the Day of Hope. He turned to face Ambassador Marcus Webb, who stood alone at the center of the chamber. "Ambassador, do you have anything to say?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. He thought of Captain Grant, who had died with his finger on the button. He thought of 3,000 families who were missing someone tonight. He thought of his own daughter, who had almost grown up without a father. "We came to the stars hoping to find friends," he said finally. "We found something better. We found purpose. We found a chance to prove that our madness, our hope, our refusal to accept the inevitable, all of it matters." He looked up at the assembled species. "We are not the strongest species in this galaxy. We are not the wisest or the oldest. But we have something that cannot be calculated or measured. We have the stubbornness to keep fighting when we should surrender. We have the foolishness to love things we know we will lose. We have the insanity to believe that one person, one choice, one moment of courage can change everything." He smiled, and it was the smile of a species that had finally found its place among the stars. "We are human. We are insane. And now we are home." The chamber erupted in applause. Species that had feared humanity now celebrated them. Beings that had wanted to destroy them now stood beside them. And somewhere in the void between galaxies, Something ancient and terrible nursed its wounds and remembered the taste of those small, mad, beautiful creatures who had dared to fight back. It would not forget, but neither would the galaxy forget what humanity had taught them. That hope was not a weakness, that love was not a flaw, that sometimes the most insane thing you could do was the only thing worth doing. And that was the truth about humanity.